All right. Well, good morning, party people. It's been a bit since I've posted anything. I'll get into that. But for now, let's just talk about some updates. Uh, things are kind of looking up, going into the general direction of where I want them to be, kind of. Um, so it's Thursday right now. On Monday, I accepted a job offer. We'll talk a bit about it. And vaguely, we'll talk about it. Um, so, the process I was using was, you know, for people who might be new here, I have been working in mental health for like ages. Um, and at least with the situation I had before, with the pandemic and the living setting, living with all these people that just, being stuck in the house with them during lockdowns and, working from home, there were definitely benefits to it. Um, like not using the gas and, being able to kind of ease into work a little bit more. You get more rest time because you're not getting up so early just to like do stuff. But during the pandemic is pretty much when I started all these podcasts. And a lot of it was basically venting about my situation. So if I look at my situation of where I was then, spending about an hour, hour and a half every day once I got off work, leaving the house, going down the street, smoking a bowl in a San Diego, parking lot, and venting about, you know, the whatever happened the night before, with likely somebody waking me up or knocking on the door, the roommates arguing, or whatever was going on in the household, and the stressor of work, having a job that, where I got gaslighted, and, I did get bumped up to a different position with a better pay rate that paid about, at that time it was like $6. So in May of 2020, I was making about $6 more, and then an extra dollar on top of that by um, a year, like into 2021. But still living in that environment, and I had one of the best snowboard years of my life around 2021, but somewhere after April or so of 2021, my just like everything felt like it was declining. Health wise, I started noticing more. I'm sleeping more, I'm exercising less, getting to the gym less, hiking less. Um, I was getting out with friends less in a different way just because we couldn't go to bars and clubs and stuff. So a lot of our hanging out was like more, just chilling around Balboa Park, beaches, rooftops, little house gatherings, like kickbacks, bonfires, in in backyards and stuff of people who did have a space, which there really weren't that many people who had a space, but the parks and things, usually it was easy to find space. Pretty much anywhere that wasn't Mission Beach was pretty much easy to kind of like get to and hang out at. So we did that. Um, in September of 2022, I started studying for something more tech relevant, uh, tech sales, digital marketing. Now, I didn't really have much experience in sales other than e-commerce, um, but um, digital marketing, I've dabbled for like ages with like the blogging and the websites and you know that kind of thing, and helping people with their sites, at least to like launch, have something to launch with like a logo and like a website, a blog, all that kind of stuff. So I've been doing that since maybe like 2011, 2007 or something, like when I was getting done with grad school. Um, and so that's always like a good fallback skill, because there are a lot of people out there that are professionals that want to open their own businesses and things, and they have to have an online presence. And a lot of people, if they're in an office or whatever, or at a clinic or wherever they're working, and they're trying to like set up their own thing, they might not know about what that really looks like to have an online presence. So I kind of had that under my belt. Like, I would say it wasn't like developed to a way where I could definitely like guarantee somebody's gonna make money if they hired me at that point, before I started any kind of like actual learning around it, like more formal learning, do like boot camps and interning and all that kind of stuff. Um, but from September 2022 through, let's call it now, April 2024, what have I noticed has changed? I've been able to finish some certifications, tech related, that don't involve like coding or anything like that. Well, you can use HTML, CSS, like, I mean, it helps to kind of know, like, if you know Python, that's gonna help. Like, any kind of language you can learn is gonna be of more use than not, just to know it. But the thing is, it's kind of hard to learn that kind of stuff if you're not using it. Like, it's not that it's hard to learn, it's just it's hard to memorize it if you're not using it. At least for me, I've never been able to like retain the information if I'm not using it. So I never really fully got into coding for that reason. I do have an interest still in cybersecurity, um, and but I know that's a long route. But I was like, okay, sales and digital marketing, they're very related. I can already sell my own services, which I've done, and um, I'm still learning more about advertising and budgets and all that kind of stuff, like running campaigns for other companies through their own budgets. That's something I'm not yet comfortable with, but I'll be doing that with my own once I kind of raise the capital to be able to do that. So I'm basically hoping that this job will help me raise capital to be able to do that, and you know put more of the money into the e-commerce stuff. I've been doing Uber Eats just because it's the fastest money, um, daily, that you can kind of just cash out daily. So I kind of like that aspect, even though I'm not really into it, because you do have to pay and it is more time than it's worth. Say if you spend 3-4 hours online, you might get 1 to 2 hours worth of work that they actually count. You do get at the least minimum wage for that, but I estimate if I put in about 8 hours of actual counted hours, where they track the difference between if you're logged on and while you're logged on that day, how much of that actually counts. They only count when you get an order, when you're driving to that order to pick it up, and when you're driving from the pickup restaurant to the house or drop off location for the customer who ordered the food. That's all that actually gets counted. So if I'm waiting an hour, if I'm waiting at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., if I'm waiting at 10 a.m., and I don't get an order, even though my app is on, and I don't get an order till 11:15 a.m., that whole hour and 15 minutes does not count toward anything. Even if I'm driving around town, even if I'm sitting in one spot, it is an hour. It doesn't matter. 75 minutes wasted that you don't get paid for just because you're sitting online. And the order can be 11:15. The order comes in, you accept it. Maybe it's $8 for, like, they say it's like 35 minutes or something, and that means it's going to be like within like probably 2 to 3 miles from wherever you're at. That's the total distance you're going to be driving, is like 2 to 3 miles. It's usually going to be like within that 30-minute range, and usually in that 30-minute range they'll pay you anywhere from a little under $3 to $3. That's usually with no tips, or about $5 to $8 with a little tip, or if they're actually tipping you 20% or so, it's usually going to be around that $8 range per order. And so if it takes you from 11:15, once you accept the order, to go get it, and then you drop it off, let's say it's quick, you're there by 11:30, you've only and then you verify that you've delivered the order, and it's 11:15 to 11:30, you've only technically worked 15 minutes for $8. And then you'll usually get more orders, especially if it's like a lunch rush. You'll usually keep stacking orders from there, and then you'll just go from there. But the whole time you're driving, you're wasting gas. And so, yes, that $8 you made, you still have to calculate that you drove to a restaurant, you drove to a house, and then they're probably going to send you another order. You drove to another restaurant, you drove to a different, maybe you're dropping some lunch off for somebody who's at work, so you drove to that place of business. Sometimes you get 2 orders. You guys know how it works if you've delivered, but that money is not predictable. But basically the Prop 22 pays you out, so they calculate how long you've been actually working within the orders, and make sure that what you got paid as far as tips and the delivery fees and everything is at least minimum wage. And so they're going to pay you out the minimum wage difference of what you did not get paid, and then they're going to pay you out the partial mileage reimbursement. So I've estimated that if I work 8 hours, about 8 hours for about let's say about 8 hours for the time that they're actually verifying that I'm like doing orders, I'm gonna get about 100, maybe somewhere between $90 to $110 ish every 2 weeks. So that's nothing, that's nothing. But that's every two weeks, and then at the same time you're getting paid daily per order, and then when you cash it out, they take a percentage. If you cash out to their freaking card, or out of their freaking card, if you cash out to their system, you're not getting, let me see, if you cash out to the card that they give you, it's like $2.99 per cash out, or $1.99 or something. And if you cash out to your own debit card, it's like 85 cents per cash out. And it's instant, but they take that money. And so, and if you're in the middle of a ride, you can't cash out. And so, say if you need to go get gas in the middle somewhere, you can't accept something and then cash the money out while you're like technically doing a delivery. So you gotta really not drive your car on empty and stuff like that. You gotta really kind of prepare. So for that reason, that's not for me. Like, especially because you can't just work all day and make money. Like, if I start my app at 8:30 a.m., unless it's like a Sunday or Saturday or a day where people are ordering breakfast or something, you know, most people aren't ordering breakfast on weekdays to deliver because it takes a while and they're running, around. Unless they're at work, people might order in the mornings, but you usually don't have a breakfast rush for the most part. It's usually later, around the 11 people start ordering on weekdays, especially. On weekends, I would say around 10:30, 10 o'clock, you might get some orders, like brunch type orders. But usually by about 2 o'clock, 2:30, the orders kind of dry up, and then you have to wait again till later on. But usually before 11, you're not really getting that many orders. So you have all morning where you're not getting orders. Even if you keep your app on, you're very likely not going to get orders, even if you're sitting at hotspots where they have like a bunch of places where people always order from. And then that's basically what I learned to do, was just sit at the hotspot where I was always getting orders and just keep going back to the spot, keep going back to the spot. It's like this big shopping plaza that's got all kinds of like restaurants, stores, Vons. Vons is a good one. Unfortunately, the Vons specifically in that hotspot area does not have good reception. My phone doesn't get reception near the store. Like, there's little areas where I don't get reception. And I'm not really trying to just talk about Uber Eats this whole time, but that's kind of what's on my mind. But let's move past Uber Eats. It's an option to make money when you need something and you want to kind of like pay for something. You can kind of estimate how much money you need to make and be like, okay, I'm going to make $40 today, I'm going to make $50 today, and just estimate how much money you need to make if you have the time to be driving like that to make the money. But if you're working another job, you're probably not going to have the time. So I've been dealing with that. That's been a major source of income, but also a major waste of time and energy. And then moving from that into, just applying every day. The reason why I was doing Uber Eats is because I was trying to study, trying to get my own customers, and trying to apply for jobs. So I was like, it helped in that way because it was so flexible. It's not like, oh, I have to be on the clock, but, you know, it was just possible to make money, at least a little bit. Like, it wasn't no money, but unless you have a car that's like a hybrid or an electric vehicle or something where you can actually like not have to spend a lot on gas, your profits are really eaten up by the gas a lot too. I estimated I spend about 10 to 15 bucks in gas almost every day just doing lunch deliveries, and that's if I go like 11 to like 2 or so. On average, I'd say I was driving probably, honestly, about 2 hours, about 8 hours about 8 hours a week. So about 4 days a week, about 2 hours each time. That was average, and it just kind of adds up. But that's not sustainable. And the customers I was getting for digital marketing, it wasn't consistent because I'm spreading my energy with, trying to do applications and studying all these different skills and practicing them and like, and, applying to a bunch of jobs, but not really hearing back from many other than the mental health sites. Those are really the only sites. They kept contacting me back. And so once I got connected with this recruiting company, they kept trying to send me jobs, and I kept telling them, hey, like, that's really far. I would prefer something remote, and then they found something that's hybrid, but it's not really that hybrid. It sounds like it's more like in the community, um, partly hybrid, but not that hybrid. Um, so I don't really know. We'll see. I'm gonna jump into it, see how fast I can save 20K, and then move on from there. I mean, it's back in mental health. I wasn't really trying to go back into mental health, but it's not too um, intensive with the mental health side of things. It's more like meeting clients that just got discharged from the hospital, making sure they have resources, they stay on the caseload for 30 days, so they're not like long term clients. Uh, and so I feel more comfortable about that because I can just make my money. Now, this is 9 hours a day, no paid lunch. There are benefits, 401k after 6 months. I'd have to wait to be able to opt in to healthcare insurance. Right now, I don't really know if I want my healthcare insurance to change. I'm gonna have to see what that's gonna look like. Um, but I'm like, I'd rather have the steady money and save fast, and then keep looking for the job that I left the field to try to get to. It's just it took a while, it took a long time to actually learn, because when I started learning, it was September 2022, and I was still working, and I decreased my hours from 40 hours a week to 32 hours a week, and so I could at least have one day to study. And then when I left that job, the last day of December 2022, coming into 2023, I was not working that job at all. I spent the year, building up skills, you know, getting my own customers, working Uber Eats to supplement some of that. But basically, it was too many things when it's like I still have to study, and I still have to apply, and I still have to try to apply these skills so that I can build experience. Because the problem is trying to get into a tech role. If you don't have the experience, you can't get into the role. And so I don't have that much experience compared to psych. I have 9 years if you count my practicums, 7 years if you count, just the full-time work, full-time paid work. Um, in the tech world, I do not have 7 to 9 years of experience. I'd say there was 1 year that I was working for someone way back, and then I could say from there, well, let's call it 1.5 years, if I'm being generous, 1.5 years, because there were 2 jobs I've had. One was for it was a private, you know, person who hired me, and then one was a company who had me kind of doing a little bit of work for them. And so we'll call that 1.5 years. One for the lady I was working with, I made like $100 a day while she was looking over my shoulder the whole time, and it was like weekends. And then for the other person, I made I think it was 10 or 15. I think it was 15 an hour, writing SEO content for a startup. And from there, I was with some friends trying to get into a startup, but I guess it fell through. I don't really know what happened. We had like our first meeting online back when we used to meet on Skype. This was probably like '07 or somewhere. All right, sorry, my alarm decided to chime. But yeah, that's basically been my experience. Um, it's just been, you know, trying to, get experience in a new field where the good thing about it is you can do it yourself. So you can build blogs yourself, you can rank them yourself, you can learn how to do all this by studying other people's content online yourself. You can learn web design yourself. You can sell your own things, through Fiverr, Upwork, whatever other options you can come across. You can do that yourself. Um, you don't really need, like, I don't think anybody looks and they're like, oh, you went to school for this, or like, you did this or that. It's like, can you help me with my project, and can you help me get my startup and brand launched? Like, can you help me make money? Can you help me monetize this? Um, can you create good content that's gonna get me sales? That's what people want. They don't really care so much where you went to school. Usually you're not going to school for that kind of stuff. Maybe for marketing at the most, or like some business related thing. Maybe you can learn advertising and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not traditional. And the psych field really is traditional. And so some things I don't like about the psych field is, I don't know if they think about it, but moving up in the field is not, it is not, it's not that it's not possible. It's just, you have to either get licensed, which means you have to stay at a certain place that's writing off certain hours for you, and get licensed and then move up. And community and county work is usually, it's hard to really say what's harder, but it's harder than probably working for a university or working through like a major hospital. Just the clientele is different, the people are different, they usually have higher needs, they usually have access to less. So it's not that you're working harder, that's not the problem of it. It's just that there's not an efficiency to it. County paperwork is just, it gets in the way of caring for the clients, and they don't really prioritize efficiency, so there's a lot of burnout. You end up doing so much so fast. You're working on paperwork fast while you're dealing with very serious situations of people with their chronic issues going on, and then, but finish it fast, like turn it in fast, and it has to be accurate, and you're not going to get a raise ever, even though you're like busting your ass working for these places. So that's kind of what I see as the downfall of the mental health system, is that, the people who need the most help get the most overwhelmed workers. And then there's high turnover in those jobs, and the pay is just crappy. Like, let's be real. I've already talked about it before. If you're living in Southern California and you're making less than $40 an hour, it's not going to be very comfortable for you. Like, because if you think about it, it's like, if you have two people, like a lot of households, most households I know have two incomes. And the extra money is spent on food and utilities. If there's more people living there, you're buying more food for two people, and then you're spending more in utilities, I'm assuming, because like there's more showers being taken, there's more water being used. So utilities are a little bit more, getting used a little bit more. But other than that, you have two incomes. So if you have even two people making $20 an hour, that's going to be good. But if you're one person making $20 an hour or even $25 an hour, that's going to be hard to live off of, because the math just doesn't add up. I mean, out here it doesn't add up, you know? Like, if you're supposed to be spending a third of your income on rent, let's say if you make $25 an hour and you work a 40-hour work week, that's $1,000 that you're bringing in a week. And then if you multiply that by people say 52 weeks in a year, that's $52,000 a year before taxes, because you're paying a lot in taxes. That's before your deductions, they get taken out for your benefits, and that's before your retirement contributions. So you're actually bringing in, I mean, even if you're taking out 10% of that, that's 46,800. So you're taking out more than 10%, because you're paying more than 10% in taxes out here in California, and there's going to be more than 10% total deducted from your paycheck is going to be more than 10%. So even if you deduct 10%, you're making $46,800 a year, right? And so let's say, okay, if you divide that by 12, you have about 3,900 a month. That's if only 10% is taken out. And then if you divide that by 3, that's 1,300. You usually can't find a studio out here for $1,300. A studio apartment. That's going to be high competition if you do find one that even exists. Most of them are over 1,500, closer to 2,000. But you can find apartments, you know, near the 2,000 range, go up to like 1,800 to like 2,100. You're going to be more comfortable. But making $25 an hour, if you're only deducting 10% of your expenses, which you're deducting more, because even if you don't get the healthcare insurance, you have to pay for that. You have to get it. You have to pay out of pocket then. And even if you don't contribute to your retirement, which in all honesty, that is not a very smart decision. You know, you're basically skipping that step so that you can live in the now, you know, so that you can try to find an apartment that's $1,300 a month. You're gonna have to spend more than $1,300 a month, you know, on rent, and you're gonna spend more than 10% in your deductions. So it basically, it doesn't even add up for like making $25 an hour. That's not enough, you know. And so the math just doesn't add up. 40 is a more comfortable. I've done the math a billion times. You know, 40 an hour is more comfortable. It puts you in a different bracket for taxes, so you are paying a little bit more too, out of taxes. But the expenses, that's kind of where it is to meet the rent needs. I have not seen hardly any jobs at all that pay $40 an hour, starting. Now that's the key, is the starting. Now, I would say the only real method that I'm seeing for people is to take a job where you see that there's manager positions and other positions that you could potentially get into that pay more. Or get yourself in a position where you either live with roommates, God forbid, roommates, or family, or somewhere, or with someone, or in some state where you can save so much more money, and then get something else. You know, I'm either trying to open like a group home facility or a parking lot, like a shelter service type of parking lot where homeless can park there. um, and make it government funded. Either one of those, the parking lot's probably going to be cheaper. Um, but that's kind of my next route. If I end up staying in psych, I'm just saving so that I can at least get some form of a property that's going to bring me income. Or, I'm still going to be developing these tech skills. I mean, this job that I've signed on to do is not sustainable. The only sustainable part of it is that I'm not going to be living with wild people that are going to be waking me up all the time. So I live in a stable environment, and I'm not going to be you know, having like too many expenses. Now, I am going to have to figure out a car situation, either put a lot of money into repairs of this old 2006 car that I'm driving, or, I got to do the math and see if getting a used, maybe Prius for like, you can buy them in the $8,000 to $12,000 range. I don't know what leasing one would look like. If I leased one for 6 to 12 months, I don't know what is cheaper. The car repairs that I'm going to have to do to maintain this car, and the gas I'm going to spend, because it's an SUV, so it guzzles. So is that going to be cheaper and not having those car payments, or leasing a car and having car payments? If I lease the car for work, I mean, I can't do it through the job, but if I lease the car for work, I'm wondering if it could be a tax write-off if I only used it for the job itself. That's what I don't know, but I'm gonna have to figure that out. I'm gonna have to figure out if I mean, I don't know if I want to buy a car, like a hybrid that's already, got over 100,000 miles on it. I don't really know if I'd want to do that. But leasing is expensive too. But fixing an old car is expensive too. So, and spending the gas, because the gas, I mean, that car on the books, like according to like what it says, it gets 19 miles to the gallon. It does not. I don't think it gets 19 miles to the gallon. It gets a little less than that. And so, and it's leaking fluid and all kind of stuff. Like, it's got repairs that need to be done that are worth more than the car is worth. I mean, that they're going to cost more than the car is worth, but at the same time, it's not. It's not. It's not a bad. I mean, it works. It works fine. It's not a bad car. So yeah. Now, for you guys here at Theory and Theology, I've posted the beginning of all that I just mentioned on other podcasts as well, talking about it from other angles. Now, the angle I want to talk about from here is just some changes in, let's call it, experimenting with spiritual practices. Now, I've noticed quite a bit of movement since the last 2 days of Ramadan. I'm not going to talk in too much detail about things, but I'll just say I kept generally the prayer alerts on my phone. They're not set for the right times. Today is Thursday, April 18th, the timers that I have set are 5:16 a.m. Actually, I think some of these don't need to be here. Well, it says 5:16 a.m. There's a 7 a.m., noon, 4:32 p.m., 7:22 p.m., 8:33 p.m. Now I know the times are off. That early prayer time that's like early 5 something in the morning, and then I don't think the 7 p.m. needs to be there. Maybe it does, I don't know. I start at 7 a.m. sorry. Noon, it should be afternoon, like 12:30, 12:40 something. And then these other 3 times, I don't really remember. I think the 7:22 is based on sunset, but sunset isn't 7:22 anymore. The time for sunset is 7:27-ish right now, because it does shift a few minutes, a minute or so every week or so. So it has changed. So the times that I have, I haven't been setting that 5 a.m. alarm, that 5:16 a.m. alarm. I've been turning it off in the evenings. Have I been praying diligently for every single time that the alarm goes off? No. Have I looked at the timers? Like today, I know I'm going to be somewhere at noon. I have an appointment at noon. So I'll probably be there at like 11:55. And so I'll probably actually change the timer on that one to something before. But I would say before Ramadan, I was probably praying almost zero. I was thinking about it more than I was doing it. I was still, off and on studying. But I wasn't really praying. And then, like I mentioned, the stuff that happened with the microwave and the fridge. And then, now I've landed a job. Monday I landed that job. So that was like, let me see. Because I went to the library, let me see, so last weekend, not this past Sunday, but the one before. So April 7th was the day that I decided that I was going to try for April 8th and April 9th to practice what I could of Ramadan and learn about it and everything. For Eid, I can't say I did anything. I barely learned that it even existed, and that was the extent of what I did for that day. Didn't finish the Quran. Haven't really been praying diligently 5 times a day, but I think it's at least on my mind more, or at least the timers are going off, and I'm either like just acknowledging that, hey, I should be praying because that's where the timer went off, or something. But I'm not doing like diligent like prostration 5 times a day prayers. But at least it's kind of on my mind. So that was last week, Monday, Tuesday, the 8th and the 9th. This week, Monday, the 15th of April, I accepted a job position. And I'm still in the process of all the onboarding, so, I don't want to, like, speak too soon, but it's like, they could deny me at any turn. Like, if it's for the THC and the drug test, or, maybe they don't like my car insurance, or maybe if something comes up in my background check, which it shouldn't, but I don't know, if something does come up, like, I've had tickets in the past, but nothing recently at all. And so usually they look, I think, 5 years. I don't think I've had anything in 5 years. So I should be in the clear, but I really do say I believe it when I see it. Now, the thing that I'm worried about is, let me put it this way. the way I got into working in mental health in the first place is because I believe that I have been given like a gift in that field, um, the abilities to be able to work in those healing kind of fields. Now, it takes a toll on me, but I think I can save like 20K in 6 months. That would be a benefit to me. That would be a blessing. I'll at least be helping people in the meantime. I'll be able to get situated. I can reevaluate things in 6 months versus how long is it going to take for me to keep applying to these other jobs and not making that much money while I'm doing it. I'd rather just at least be working, but that's going to take time away from studying and practicing other skills. But I'll be able to get into a groove of it. What I don't want to happen is for things to slide back with my balance, with my workouts, with my sleep, with my social, with my money, like finances, spending, or with even stuff that's like spiritual development related stuff. I don't want any of that to fall back. Now, do I think I need to pray 5 times a day, or that it's, you know, something that I don't know. I don't know what I even think about it. I'm still playing with it in a way and seeing. I felt more benefit from it than not. Being able to kind of like talk things out and be like, this is what's going on right now. It's really given me a lot of insight into how negative my mindset can be, how much time I do spend worrying about things or just concerned about, is this going to work out? I've got to do this today and my energy isn't really in it. Like, I don't really feel like, you know, I don't know if I really often feel grateful enough for things. Like, it's easy for me to slip out of, you know, that acknowledgement of what I have to be grateful for and practicing gratefulness and practicing, you know, just like the joy of having things be stable, even if it's not exactly how I want it to be stable. I'd like things to be more independently stable. But maybe it's fine to do it this way just so I can save a whole chunk of change and then move on from there. Now, I want to work in the tech field mostly because I do have a knack for it. It is interesting to me, and the money is really good. And I'm not saying you don't help people, but it is kind of different. But I just hope that, you know, things are going to keep looking up. I don't know if things have been going better because I've been kind of more involved. With trying to think about praying. I mean, I'm studying some stuff right now, kind of, you know, not really getting through the Parsha too good. I at least know what it is for this week. I think last week I didn't even like look at it. But I don't really have like a specific method with all this. I'm not like trying to practice a specific religion, or, you know, I'm just trying to see what other people say works for them and see if it's worth it for me, if anything changes in my life. Because it's like, it's not like I'm not smart. It's not that I don't have degrees. It's not that my job applications are bad, or that my resume looks bad, or that I interview bad. And, you know, I think one thing that was definitely missing in my work, you know, in my professional career was, you know, spiritual practice. I never really kept to one, I don't think. I mean, a little bit, but it was mostly like working out, yoga, meditation. But I wasn't like too diligent about it, and I definitely fell off that. And when I fell off that, because it was the only thing I was doing, when I fell off of that, nothing improved. Everything just only got worse. And so I'm hoping I can learn some things to incorporate, and then it'll go well. And that's pretty much all. All for this. We'll see what happens. I've got some other stuff I'll post eventually, but for now, this is all I really had to talk about. I don't know what you guys think. If landing this job has anything to do with, what was going on at the end of Ramadan. If trying to make different decisions like that is something that like opens doors right away. I mean, I was always kind of taught about that kind of stuff, but then it also kind of philosophically makes it a little bit like, well, what, like it's a place to be careful talking like that, because it's like, well, if people aren't having good luck, does that mean they're doing something wrong? I don't want to get into that kind of talk and start saying like, kind of like Job's friends who were like, oh, well, you brought this curse upon you because you're not holy enough, or because you're not good enough, or you're not doing something right. But I would say maybe what I've learned, and it's a maybe because I really don't know where all this stuff is coming from, but it's possible that making those changes toward spiritual practices can open some doors, maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe they're gonna see the THC in my test and be like, sorry, no job. I mean, I live in a legal state, but I haven't not been using it enough for it to not be in my system. I'm definitely gonna test positive for it. Or maybe they'll see that years back I had something on my record with my car registration, and that's been resolved since. It's probably like 6 years ago, 5 years, more than 5 years ago, 7 years ago or something. But maybe they'll see that and be like, no, sorry. So we'll see what they see and what they think. But it's not up to me at this point. None of this is in my hands at this point. I can just try, Praying is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Even with reminders, it's like, let me stop that reminder, let me turn it off and just get into what I was trying to do. And the next thing I know, the day has passed me by, So without having a timer set, with timers dinging every however so often, I really don't think I'll be able to kind of keep up with praying multiple times in a day, or even thinking about it, because the day just flies away from me. It's like, next thing I know, it's like the day is like done, and I just got caught up, just got too caught up, Even with alarms going off, if I don't just stop right away, I'm gonna get more caught up. So I'm learning, but I'm trying to learn by practicing something and seeing where that takes me. And like I've said, I've noticed some motion, but I don't really know if it's specifically related to these changes, because I don't know. I just don't know. Because it's been in the works. Like this job offer came on Monday, but I've talked to the recruiter like twice before this. Like, it's not like, I think I even talked to them before I started thinking about Ramadan at all. Let me see the dates. I think I talked to them, so the 15th was the interview. I'm pretty sure I must have talked to them somewhere during the week of the 7th. I don't think it would have been the day that I would have been trying to fast. But I talked to them on a Friday, and then I talked to them the next Monday. So I want to say it was the 5th and then the 8th. Maybe, yeah, because that was the day that I was like, I have an interview, so I don't want to like not eat. So I didn't wake up super, super early, but yeah, so it was the 8th. So, but I talked to them on the 5th, the very first time, which was before I had made any decision, because the decision was made on like the 7th. And so, yeah, well, I'm gonna go eat breakfast. We'll see what happens with this. I'll keep an update. And for now, that's about it.